Hey, everybody, we are here with another edition of Future Forward. Let us run the open and then we'll start the show. So big advertisers are pulling out of social media.
Is this the start of something big or just a retrenchment?
I'm Stephen Rosenbaum, and we'll dig into that on today's edition of Future Forward.
I'm Alexa Scordato. Apple builds its own chip. Is it a big deal?
I'm going to say yes to that. Well, we will see about that and everything else. Let us launch. We have launched.
What a week, Steve.
You know, we worked hard to narrow this down to a show that would be interesting and fascinating and not just a retread, but yeah, there's a lot to talk about. So why don't we're going to do 3 chapters. We'll start with Facebook, then we'll dive over to Apple for a bit, and then we'll end with a social bot that might tell you if you have COVID. And that's from our friends at IEEE Spectrum, that last one. So stay tuned for that. All right, so let's just start right off. Let's just jump into the Facebook thing.
This could be its own episode because there is so much content, so many links, and so many ways to pull apart, I think, what is actually happening.
So I'm going to start with the pessimist, and then I'll shift over to optimist in a minute.
Okay.
Maybe it's all bullshit.
Okay. Say more.
So Facebook, gets beaten up kind of like a clockwork every 12 months, 15 months. There's like a cycle where somebody gets pissed off, whether it was Roger McNamee going at him or, there's a bunch of things. And Facebook does this apology. We're going to do better. This is really serious. And then the spotlight shifts over to something else, and they don't do, they don't do it. They don't fix it. And this, on the surface, seems like a bigger deal because of the amount of money that we're talking about. I mean, here's the list from the New York Times of current. This is advertisers who are pulling out: Birchbox, Coca-Cola, Diageo, Eddie Bauer, Honda, Levi Strauss, Lululemon, North Face, Patagonia, REI, Starbucks, Unilever, Verizon, right? So it's like a who's who. But if you look under the hood, and I read this somewhere, I don't think it was in this article, but
Casey Newton, Twitter.
It's not that big a number for Facebook. It's like 6% of their revenue, because brand advertising isn't their bread and butter. It's more middle market, smaller mom and pop stuff.
Mm-hmm. So you're basically saying that this is just, it's going to bounce back, and maybe you agree with Casey Newton's sentiment that advertisers were already pulling out because of COVID and sort of the macroeconomic conditions. And so as a result of that, why not basically just spin it into good PR?
Well, and, the BLM movement is banging on their door, and so they got to do something. And they say, wow, double win. We were going to cut budget anyway. Let's cut it and look like we're being pro-social. I mean, if I said to you, Alexa, you can be pro-social by spending less money on your electric bill. You could cancel Con Ed, RAR, right? I mean, like it has the double benefit of seeming like a good thing, but actually just being a budget cut.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what's Facebook actually going to do?
So I think it needs to be sustained for a longer period of time, because some of these advertisers are saying that they're going to pull spend through July, right? So it's really just the next 30 days. What I haven't seen from a brand yet is a comprehensive list of actions, actions Facebook can take that will then trigger the ad spend to return.
The phrase that I read was pause. We're pausing our ad spend, which, given COVID and the fact that people aren't racing back to stores, I don't know. I want to believe it's a big deal. I want to believe it's going to trigger actual fundamental change in social media.
I mean, money talks, right? I would much rather that these brands are actually signaling something meaningful to Facebook that hurts, than to just tout Black Lives Matter or rainbow pride avatars for a few weeks.
All right, so I'm going to throw one at you. I'm going to put you on the spot. I've given you the keys. Zuckerberg's taking a month off. Alexa's running Facebook. It's day one. What do you do?
Oh my goodness. I think one, I acknowledge that there are policies built into Facebook that are apolitical and not anti-racist. So that would be step one, is just acknowledging that there's a problem built in to the platform, and then just really start to dismantle it. So not have a high dependency on moderation and algorithms to fix this. Actually say that if you want to be a Facebook user, then you actually have to opt in to a set of beliefs, and that basically helps slow down the spread of misinformation, and also work towards equality and a good evolved social citizen.
So here's the thing that I guess I worry about. So Larry Lessig, super bright guy, known him a long time. And we were emailing back and forth the other day about kind of the business model problems in social media. And he said this phrase, which has been echoing around in my head. He said, these are businesses that monetize tribal hate.
Mm-hmm.
And I just find myself wondering, are we going to look back in 10 years, and is the way that Facebook and Twitter make money going to look like the way we look at cigarette advertising today?
Yeah, I mean, I think the entire business model needs to be repositioned so that there are really clear incentives that force behavioral change, both from the company and the end user. So as long as Facebook is making money through an advertising and publisher model on the web, then it is always going to be incentivized to drive audience development, awareness, and engagement.
So what if Facebook? What if I'm gonna take your job back? Okay, you're no longer CEO. Now I'm CEO.
Short-lived. Yep.
I would say $3.99 a month for Facebook, not Pro, but Facebook Nice, some Facebook brand. I pay for it. I still get ads, but I don't get any political ads. I don't get any hate speech. I don't get anything that's categorized as essentially adversarial conversations. And I get some sliders, so I can say, I'd like my feed to be 10% politics. Because the thing I know is I used to get way more puppy pictures and baby pictures and people on vacation and college friends doing cool shit. And now it seems like all I get is this endless barrage of political. Now, probably the algorithm figured out that I hang on those longer and I click on them longer and I share. So I get that it's a cycle, right? I'm feeding the algorithm by reading that stuff. Mm-hmm. But I would like to, when I go to a restaurant, they don't just walk out and put a bowl of ice cream in front of me. So if they did, I would eat it.
So Facebook. So do you know how much money Salesforce makes in revenue a year?
No, but I'm going to
$17 billion. Right. So Salesforce is, CRM. It's a customer relationship management. It's B2B. I think Facebook would have just as big of an opportunity, if not bigger, to be social CRM, right? Its entire mission for the longest time is said to connect the world, right? We make the world a better place by connecting people. Social as a service. Instead of turning to Facebook for information and content, why not just turn to it for its utility? It helps us manage relationships. I would pay, I don't know, up to $9.99 a month for just a core basic vanilla Facebook instance without ads.
So now let's play that out for a second. So what's their revenue? What's their annual revenue at Facebook? I don't know.
Let me see.
Facebook. Yeah, it's a big number.
Annual revenue. In 2019, Facebook's revenue amounted to $70.7 billion.
70.7. So let's presume that Zuck has said to one of his quant guys, run me a spreadsheet that says if I give people the tools to clean up their feeds and I charge them a monthly fee for that service, what percentage of our users would pay something other than zero? And what would they pay? And what would I lose in terms of traffic? And he would look at year one of that moment, traffic dropping, and as a result, revenue dropping from 70 billion to, let's say, 60. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And the stock market then collapsing on him, and the shares collapsing on him. And
I mean, it needs a plan. It would require a massive pivot, but I think the opportunity here.
You're being, it's very sweet. I love that idea. But in real life, I think that, like, you can say that philosophically, but you're a public company with a, shareholder value responsibility, and you're going to literally take your traffic and cut it by 20% minimum, maybe 30.
Mm-hmm.
I think you get fired.
I think you get fired. I think the government's going to try to regulate Facebook anyway, and I think that we as consumers are going to abandon it over time.
You think it's going to be like Friendster, huh?
MySpace, whatever. It'll happen. It'll happen overnight. Like, you can't say there wasn't a time when we didn't think AOL wouldn't be a thing, or Yahoo wouldn't be a thing, or MySpace wouldn't be a thing.
Right, but Zuckerberg's smart, right? So he's already figured out that the answer to that is to say, you know what? I've cleaned up. Instagram is clean and friendly. So for the people that want clean and friendly, they've already shifted. I mean, I know lots of people that have abandoned Facebook and, thumb their nose at Zuckerberg and then go to Instagram and don't understand the irony in that.
But now you look at, the founding team at Instagram, they're not even there anymore. Kevin Systrom isn't there. And you look at what's happening. The entire WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook ecosystem are going to be more unified. They're already getting consolidated back end. So they're going to jeopardize that user experience. And so the people who stop using Facebook for Instagram, they're eventually going to leave Instagram too.
So the tied to this is the rumor that Chris is back as head of product at Facebook. His last name just slips my mind.
Hughes?
What, Chris, is it Chris Hughes?
I didn't hear that, but he was the first CTO at Facebook, but I didn't hear that he was back.
Well, Google. Let's find because there's the rumor mill says he left when he didn't get to clean up Facebook, and he's pretty left politically and was unhappy with where Facebook was going, and that Chris if he's right, Chris Cuff, and if he's back, that has to mean that there's some kind of a deal that was done.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. All I'm saying is that I think that there are opportunities for Facebook to explore other verticals. So, like, the stuff that they're doing, say, with Marketplace, I mean, there's a real opportunity, I think, to do what Craigslist has done for years in a safer way. Like, I would feel better about selling my used iPhone on Facebook than posting it on Craigslist.
All right, so confession, I needed to buy an old style VHS player. And I went on Amazon, I couldn't find one, and then I went on Craigslist and I couldn't find one. I've tried years ago to use Marketplace unsuccessfully. I went back to Facebook, I typed in VHS, found a guy on the Upper West Side, bought it for $30. He delivered it for $5. It was the first good transaction I had with Marketplace, but I kind of liked it.
It's getting better, right? Yep. And it's like Amazon needs competition. I don't know if we're going to dismantle these big tech companies overnight, but I definitely don't want to give any single player a massive monopoly. And so if Facebook can steal away market share from Amazon, I'm happy. If Facebook is stealing away content from Google, I'm happy. If Microsoft and Salesforce are duking it out, I'm happy.
You're easily amused today. All right, so let's shift to this next article about Facebook and Twitter. This is fascinating. Well, actually, it's the third one in. This is fascinating. So the Trump administration tells Facebook and Twitter to act against calls to topple statues or commit violent acts. How would that work exactly? You would have an algorithm that looks for the phrase topple. That doesn't seem like a we're going to go to XYZ Square and pull down. So you'd have to put in every statue name and every square name where you'd have to put in all the geolocation information. And then you'd have to, when people say, hey, why don't we all meet in Union Square and take down the statue of Ebenezer Scrooge or whatever, you'd have to put up a post that says, we find this objectionable. Or is Trump Trump's just full of shit? He doesn't really mean it.
No, and where do you even start? So I think, there are a few questions in here, which is like, to what extent do we believe that Facebook can actually moderate, monitor, encourage, or not encourage content, right? You're saying in the absence of the structured data, and I don't know, it just feels like arbitrary, and it's just making an ask that's not rooted in logic.
Shocking.
I was thinking about there's like a general concept of like slowing down the publishing experience on Facebook. So we talk about virality all the time and how quickly it is for information to spread. It's like, what if, again, say I worked in the Trump administration. It's like, what if when you went to go post content on Facebook, there's just like a little module that popped up, right? That module could say any flavor of,
are you sure you want to publish this?
Is this source credible? Is this source promoting unlawful behavior? Does this content violate a trademark like,
when your young children find out you published this, will they be proud of you?
Yeah, and it's just like, and it's just giving people pause, and then it's giving them an explicit thing to almost re-opt in to the terms of service. When we have like DMCA trademark like takedowns and violations, it's really easy for the platforms then to make sweeping calls and changes in the algorithm. I actually think they would be more successful by transferring the onus onto the end user. Like, make the end user feel a little bit of pain and make them feel like they have some skin in the game. Like, if they're gonna kind of double down and say, yes, what I'm sharing is good, then maybe they're gonna actually assume the liability.
How about this? You have to have a credit card on file. And if we find this post to not meet our terms of service, we're gonna charge you $25 to take it down.
Yep, there you go.
It's like the tip jar in the office where you have to put $1 in when you curse.
Is money talks, right?
Yeah. I like that idea. Fine. You've got to have if you don't have a credit card, you've got to preload an account with a penalty amount.
Totally. And that would stop bots and fake users and, a lot of foul play.
Okay, we're going to do that. All right. But by the way, there's another Trump social media story that I don't even have a link for because it just happened this morning. But I guess he retweeted a video. There was a conflict between his supporters and some of his non-supporters in front of a church. And one of them raised their hand in the air and started chanting white power. And Trump retweeted it and said something about thanking his friends for their support. And the internet blew up, of course, and then he took it down.
I miss that. I actually try to go super low tech on Sundays.
Yeah, not good call.
That's when we film and we record.
Which begs, of course, the question of the Presidential Records Act and how the president has the right to publish and then unpublish things. But
nothing's normal, Steve. All precedent that has been set.
All right.
Doesn't matter.
All right, let's all right, moving on to a new topic. Let's go to chapter 2. The chapter 2 is more fun. Let's go to Apple.
Watch the keynote live?
I watched the second hour. I had the commitment I couldn't get out of for the first hour. Mm-hmm. I did.
So it was like your high level takeaways. Were you happy?
I thought the presenter guy had really, really, really highly manicured eyebrows.
And a nice full head of hair.
And it made me think about there's difference between being on a stage with an audience and being, I guess, in front of a green screen, essentially having to be an actor. And I thought the executives were surprisingly polished.
Yeah.
I liked it. I mean, it was a little flat because it didn't have a live audience, which made me a little sad. But I thought that the materials were really interesting. But I did think that the chip story, and I've never been able to remember Mojave, and I don't even say it right. So I found Big Sur like a weight off my shoulders. I'm like, yes, Big Sur.
Yeah.
Spelled SIR, SUR, depending on your punny nature. But I'm looking forward to Big Sur. I am. And I thought it looked great. But the article that we pulled up, the Steve Sinofsky article about Apple's execution and revenue strategy, was fascinating for a variety of reasons. One, you had to dig in to find out that he was the head of Microsoft Windows.
And Office for many, many, many years. So his knowledge of both tech from a hardware and software standpoint is unique. And then the fact that he's been tracking Apple competitively and then now as a consumer, it's really fun.
It almost was kind of like fanboy. Like it was fanboy-ish. But here's the headline for those of you: Apple's relentless strategy, execution, and point of view. And I'll just read you the first paragraph. Apple's announcement of Apple Silicon is important for many reasons. Delivering on such an undertaking is a result of remarkable product engineering. And then here's an annotated thread, which I won't read to you. But his point is, this shit is really hard, and they did it kind of seamlessly. Now, who knows? But I was thinking about like what would be the non-techie description if I said to you, you're going to rebuild your apartment, but you can't disrupt any of the other tenants in your building, and you have to replace the ceiling, floor, walls, electrical system, plumbing, furniture, all without disrupting any of the people above or below you. That would be an engineering miracle.
Yep.
So that's essentially, I mean, again, I'm sure some of our tech viewers and listeners will holler that I got it wrong, but it just struck me, they're rebuilding, everything's got to be backwards compatible, right? Because the new chips have to run all the old stuff. And backwards compatible is really hard because in addition to being an engineering challenge, it's also just no fun. Right? There's nothing sexy or fun about building a chip to run old, antiquated software that somebody hasn't had the cojones to go out and buy a new Mac yet. So they've got to. There's always this moment when you go to the Apple store and one of the salespeople is gently trying to say to someone who's well, sir, that machine is 7 years old. Like, yeah, it might be a little hinky on the battery because it's 7 years old.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this thread breaks it down really, really well. I mean, one of the points it makes is that the focus, the ambition and the focus coupled together of the Apple team is unprecedented, right? Yeah. Like they have to say no to so many things in order to get this right.
So one of the things about the keynote was it was the first time that I'd seen the inside of the Apple spaceship building. And even though it was empty, I still felt like I was like, whoa, they shot some of, I don't know how they quite did it. Couldn't quite figure it out.
Some like fancy drone operators probably just took some B-roll and
pasted people on top of it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was beautifully produced. Better than almost anything I've seen trying to do that. But let's go back to you though. Besides Big Sur and the chip, anything catch your eye?
I mean, I really love the fact that they talked about privacy, right? They said that they're going to force a store policy where you have to disclose how consumer data is going to be used in an app. I mean, I think that sets a really good benchmark that should try to anchor and propel other software makers to do the same. So if you're not technical, basically it's just saying, like, if you go to a website or use a piece of software, imagine just getting almost like a nutrition label that's saying, here's what we're using to build this thing, and then here's where your data is going. Right? When you go to any website, for me as a marketer, I'm putting a bunch of stuff on the back end that you can't see. I'm putting pixels, JavaScript pixels in there that allow me to see data in Google Analytics. I'm using tracking pixels for HubSpot or CRM or Mixpanel.
You know what I'm having for lunch?
No, but you know.
Because,
there are a bunch of things. They're like behavioral analytics in a product, and sort of just kind of like, if you go to Europe, with GDPR, and you sort of see like, okay, do you accept cookies? And then you actually go cookie by cookie, you will see sometimes it's like 24 things that you can opt into or opt out of, right? That is going to be a thing now that Apple is forcing within the Apple Store.
that's great. Yeah, I agree. That is great. But if you think about it, right, it makes sense because Apple, as opposed to Google, Apple doesn't sell advertising.
Right.
It's easy. I don't mean to say it's easy, but it's easier for them to be a privacy advocate because they don't make any money by infringing on privacy.
Mm-hmm.
So good for them.
Right.
Android, not so much.
Yeah, I'm. There's a whole spectrum. I mean, we could do a whole different show on like closed versus open systems and the possibilities of open source business models. I mean, Apple's just interesting because it's always been relentless and unapologetic about privacy being part of its DNA, right? Like, I think to your point, they've always said like we're not going to be the open platform. We're not going to be configurable. We don't really trust the consumer to tinker. So we're going to do it end to end, right? And even if you work at Apple, your security badge is only like letting you into like one part of the building because they even keep teams very separate from one another.
I assume the shift to work from home for them has got to have been very, very, very challenging.
I have no idea. I was thinking about this the other day. I want someone to write this article. How is Apple managing its employees during COVID?
Do you think it says, look, it's fine that you have kids and a wife at home or a husband, but you're going to have to take a black cloth and wear it over your head in front of the screen because we can't have anyone looking over your shoulder?
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to say yes. I think they all have little black tents.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they have like all of the monitoring things where every keystroke, every time you log in, like it must be so under wraps.
All right, let's go to chapter 3. Chapter 3 is cool and not about politics, at least not exactly. So this is Kobo. Kobo is a COVID-19 self-assessment chatbot. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. I mean, if you've read any of the articles, like, how do you know you have COVID symptoms? It's any kind of checklist can be reprogrammed into a bot.
Yeah, but I would think medicine has got to be dicier than that because I mean, if you go to WebMD, it always says, does your side hurt? Does your head hurt? It almost no matter what you type into it, it says you should call your doctor. Like, I mean, because they don't want response. So how does the self-assessment chatbot say, based on what you told me, I don't think you have COVID? Like, that would seem to be a risky response.
Totally risky. I mean, I would imagine that it still needs to have all of the disclaimers and probably the call to action, which is like, if you're still not sure, or like the last thing it says is like, type in your zip code to find the nearest testing location.
So increasingly the phrase that I keep hearing is check with your pharmacist. And I'm like, do I have a pharmacist? Like, do I have a personal pharmacist?
Yeah, that read?
But yeah, I've got the guy at CVS or the woman or whoever's behind the counter. But I don't think we've ever had like I'm your pharmacist. Nice to meet you. Like.
Yeah. They still have that
Um,
in your.
so it occurred to me this morning that whatever is going on, either to get proper medication in place for COVID or to start to come up with some kind of a cure, it's getting almost no press. There's like virtually, it's almost like everyone in the labs is like, you know what? We don't want to get people excited. We don't have anything solved yet. We're just going to work away. But like the media, essentially, the only thing it's covering are the numbers, which are horrific and terrifying. Um, and then this absurd song and dance about masks and how it's a
We're impatient, Steve. Like there's nothing about, oh, a cure, a remedy is coming in the record time compared to previous vaccines. Like a time scale that is months is just like something that doesn't compute, I think, in the American public. Like we can't even stomach not getting a haircut for 90 days, you know?
I did okay on that.
Okay.
Just saying, certain advantages. I don't understand the whole barbershop thing. Haven't been in a while. But I do think at the end of the day, the thing I don't get is what Pence said, that this crazy line that someone had written for him when he was asked about why people at the Trump rallies weren't wearing masks. And he said, we have to balance our physical health with our First Amendment rights and our free speech rights. And I'm like, what? Like, does that work for for helmet laws and seat belts and cigarette smoking in restaurants? I mean, if you want to go down that road, then I should just be able to go into a local restaurant and smoke a cigar because it's my free speech rights.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that speech? Is transmitting a transmittable disease speech?
Yeah, none of it makes sense.
Right?
I don't know. I saw some very disturbing like anti-mask videos this week, particularly from the state of Florida, that just freaked me out.
There were people speaking to a city council meeting, and it was on. They were all edited together, and like there was 6 or 7 of them, and each one was more batshit crazy than the one before. Like the guy said, "I'm not a rabid animal. I don't want to have to wear a mask like a rabid animal." Did you see that one?
No, I just saw the one, like
he looked like a rabid animal. I gotta say, I was like, muzzle this guy for fuck's sake. Now, having said that, Pam and I went out to dinner.
Mm-hmm.
We wore masks. The restaurant server wore mask and gloves. They gave us a contactless menu. There was you literally took your phone and pointed it at it, and it pulled up the menu on your phone.
First time I've been like an active user of QR codes.
Yep. Pam was like, I don't have an app. I said, I think the camera works now. She's like, really? She's like, are you sure? Yeah, she's like, are you sure? I'm like, not really, but yeah, QR codes. So did you go out and have dinner?
I did. Yeah. We were out in Greenport, Long Island, and we sat in the street, and it was great.
Yeah. But to be blunt, it didn't feel to me like a political act. I wasn't like, I'm going to eat out to prove. I was like, I'm going to eat out because I've been cooking for 3 months and I'm a little bored of my cooking. And I like the local restaurants on the Upper West Side. And so I thought, all of Amsterdam has tables in the street. Like literally,
I felt very safe. I was pleasantly surprised. I actually stayed in a hotel this weekend. It was not booked to capacity. There were like 4 people in a pool at a time, more than 6 feet apart. Everyone had masks. And I just feel like, I don't know, as a state, maybe March and April were just so painful that we all can't go back. And so we're being safe.
But did Florida just like nap through that? Like, did they not see the pictures on the TV?
Well, I think because they didn't experience the pain, like it didn't affect them personally, that it was too easy to dismiss. I mean, this is the problem with this whole thing. It's like people are just going to say, oh, it was all a big lie. It was a hoax. It was whatever. And it's like, well, yeah, all of these distancing measures, if you weren't affected, if the numbers didn't go up in your state, that's a good thing. Right?
Well, And then on top of that, you've got these bar scene pictures that, like, I just can't help but think it's like these really young 20-year-olds essentially going, I'm not going to get sick, and if I do, I think I'll get better, and I might, I might go home and infect grandma, but she's old anyway.
It is what it is. Yeah. I mean, there was a student in Westchester who had traveled from Florida. And so now there's this whole like contact tracing effort that's taking place to try to get that cluster under control.
All right. Well, wait, I thought I was going to have my mask right here, but I don't. But I'm here. I think I'm actually going to change. I was thinking I would change my Facebook profile picture to put a mask on it.
So do you use the surgical mask, or you have a cloth mask now? I like the mask fashion that's like emerging. Like if you go to like Gap or Banana Republic, like clothing brands are actually selling masks right now.
Pam found an N95 cloth mask early in January from a company that has credible references, and we've been using those. I don't remember the name, but when we leave the apartment, it's mask, gloves. I wear a hat. I don't know why. It seems safer, I guess. Yesterday, we took the dog on a backpack ride on a bicycle.
Oh, nice.
No mask for the dog. The dog likes the wind in its little puppy ears. All right. We are out of time. Ding, 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 ding. Game over. Have an excellent week. Stay safe. Wear a mask.
See you next week.
See you next week.